Hello, and welcome to the Round Square International Conference 2021, Blue Skies and Brave Conversations. My name is Mars Knapp, and I'm a student at École Alsacienne in Paris, France.
And I'm Mia Capacity Gutierrez, a student at Appleby College near Toronto in Canada. Over the past 18 months, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed our lives in ways that we could have never imagined. For so many of us, it has been a reminder of what really matters in the world and where our priorities lie. We have every reason to look to the future with optimism. There is blue sky on the horizon, but in order to get there, it's time for some brave conversations about the need for change.
Over the past few months, a staggering team of more than 100 student baraza leaders from 40 Round Square schools have been busy planning our brave conversation topics for the next 4 days. Our topics are identity and inclusion, climate action, and ethical leadership.
To get us started on our discussions, we and some of our fellow baraza leaders have interviewed 14 keynote conversationalists from different backgrounds and areas of expertise to find out where they think we should start our conversations for this conference. We have used these interviews to prepare 4 keynote films, one for each conference topic, and today's introductory film on blue skies and brave conversations.
On the conference website, you can find our biographical interviews with each of our speakers. Please take a look if you haven't already. In the meantime, here is a reminder of who they are.
My name is Buhle Dlamini, and that is a little bit hard to say for some people. That's because it's Zulu. Become a consultant and work with different companies. So when I work with my clients, my focus is on organizational culture, diversity and inclusion, cultural intelligence.
Hey everyone, this is Alex Sheen, founder of Because I Said I Would and 5-time TEDx speaker. Really focused on the thought of keeping promises because somebody you know in life may not be so good at that. How has that impacted you? What difference does that make, even on a global scale, how we treat our commitments?
Hi, I'm Ellen Windemuth. I'm the CEO of a company called Off the Fence, which is a production and distribution company that does documentaries. And I'm also the CEO of a digital network called the WaterBear Network. I make films, and one of the films I made is called My Octopus Teacher, which some of you may have seen on Netflix. So overall, my business is storytelling, and I tell stories with fantastic colleagues in a network that I work with all over the world.
Hi, I'm Anantha Duraiappah. I'm now the director of the UNESCO Category 1 Institute, which calls itself the Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development. My passion is on mainstreaming social and emotional learning in our education systems so that we change our mindsets from a very predatorial perspective to one which is of a nature of kindness.
I'm Soumya Swaminathan, and I'm the chief scientist at the World Health Organization. I lead the science division and work closely with my colleagues across the house in the emergencies program and in the other divisions of WHO to help produce the best, latest, most evidence-based recommendations on different thematic areas of health.
Hi, I'm Lee Howell. I'm managing director at the World Economic Forum in Geneva, Switzerland. I'm American and Japanese and very much interested in learning about world affairs, but at the same time, learning about what young people think about world affairs and what they value and find important. I spent most of my time working with leaders, helping them learn new things and actually commit to take action on major global challenges.
So my name is Ofenza Lekwane. I'm 33 years old from Pretoria, South Africa. I currently work in youth unemployment in South Africa, but I'm a big advocate for enabling access to quality education in South Africa, as well as trying to eradicate youth unemployment. On my spare time, I also double up as a skinfluencer, which effectively means I model some skin products and advocate for people with different skin tones to be in the mainstream space.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Gladden. I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I'm a teacher, and I talk about lots of subjects, including those relating to gender, race, identity, and intersectionality.
Hi, I'm Sanam Naragi Anderlini. I'm a Cobham Hall alumni. I am the founder and CEO of the International Civil Society Action Network, ICANN, which supports and works with women peace builders all around the world in countries where there's war, violence, and violent extremism.
So my name is Lesego. I am from South Africa. I had the opportunity to attend Tiger Kloof in the Northwest Province, another Round Square school. I decided to start Bokamoso Impact Investments, which focuses on creating agricultural income generation opportunities for young and old people, as well as focus on sustaining our environment.
Hi, I'm Solly. I'm 16 years old. I'm an award-winning author. I'm an award-winning poet, a youth coach, and founder of the environmental charity Earth Enablers. And I really just try to make a positive difference in the world and use creative writing as a platform.
Hi, my name is David Hempleman Adams. I was the first person to do what they call the Adventurers Grand Slam, and that's climbing the highest mountain on each continent and getting to the north and south geographical poles and magnetic poles. And that was, at that time, it was a first.
Hello, I am Dr. Vandana Shiva from India, trained as a physicist, but I have spent the last 4 decades saving seeds, promoting ecological agriculture, protecting biodiversity, and searching for ways how through conservation we can create more abundance, how through sharing we can have more wealth in society, and how through an economy of care we can create prosperity for all.
So my name is Ade Adepitan. I am a Paralympic athlete or Paralympic medalist, competed at 2 Paralympic Games at wheelchair basketball. I've also competed at the World Championships and the Paralympic World Cup. And then I went on to make documentaries. And now I travel the world making documentaries, trying to tell stories and give people who don't normally have a voice.
Wow, we interviewed some fascinating people who are doing some amazing things with their lives. It was such a privilege to speak with them, and I'm sure that over the course of the next few days, they will share some interesting ideas on our conference topics that we can discuss further in our Baraza discussions.
So today is a day of introductions. We've introduced our speakers, and later we will introduce ourselves to one another in our Baraza breakouts. But first, let's introduce our conference theme, or Blue Skies and Brave Conversations, by hearing from some of our speakers on the topic of brave conversations.
Young people are the future, you're the future. So whether it's fighting pandemics now and in the future, whether it's climate change, whether it's antimicrobial resistance, there are some things which have to be fought at the global level, which need citizens and governments to act. And so young people are a force. Look what's happening with climate change now. It was young people who put older people to shame, saying, what kind of earth are you leaving for us? And pandemics also arise through some of the same factors that are affecting climate change. So it's things like deforestation, urbanization, and illegal wildlife trade. The human-animal contacts are increasing, and this is going to increase the chances of more viruses jumping from animal species to humans. So this is not the last pandemic that we're going to have. So we need to put in place some mechanisms. The other thing we need is some global consensus. This is not something that politics should come in at all. This is something that's about health, which affects everyone.
I think this is an important era in our history, especially with, the impact of COVID all across the world. And I think this is a good time to have brave conversations around, inequalities, around poverty. We've seen, in developing countries, even in developed countries, people going hungry. We've seen people losing their jobs. People are continuing to lose their jobs as well. So I think brave conversations now, it's about confronting all those injustices, whether it be race, whether it be with companies that are using chemicals that are destroying bee colonies like all over the world. So having those conversations. So it's not all about capital, but it's all about restoring our environment for future generations.
It's a symbol, it's something and a message to society as a whole, is that we'll only achieve and we'll only be able to overcome the big challenges that the human race has if we come together. The big, and I think we might touch upon this later on, the biggest challenge that the human race faces right now is climate change. And the only way we are going to solve that is if all the nations in the world, stop the bickering and we come together to solve that problem.
It is a bit sad, isn't it, that we would need such a huge tragedy to do what we should normally be doing anyway in our basic conscious choices. We should not be living for consumerism and the next fashion and the next throwaway clothing and the next junk food, which is giving us diabetes. We should be eating fresh and local. So I think one shift that this COVID lockdown has taught us is the need to shift our identities as human beings from consumers to Earth citizens, that we are citizens of the Earth, and caring for the Earth is our biggest duty.
If these things are as hard as we say they are, so much so that, and by these things, I mean these conversations, right? This means that on the day we are prepared to have these conversations, we should be a lot more flexible than normal. And one of the ways to do that is to just allow people in that room who have been brave enough to at least step into that room and have that conversation to make mistakes. And saying that as a person who has been on the receiving end of people's mistakes is hard, right? But I'm realizing that it's the only way to get past my own discomfort as well as theirs. In as much as we want to pretend like this is not true.
Always start your meetings or your connections with personal connections. So this is something as simple as allow each person to say just something that's going on in their lives, what they're dealing with or whatever. That little bit of vulnerability, when you are willing to be vulnerable in that group, it frees you. I know the power of vulnerability is so powerful. When you're willing to be vulnerable and say where you are, it frees you, but it also does something else to the other in the group. The other people in the group, they see the humanity, they see the you that they wouldn't have seen by just looking at, your background, looking at how you look like, listening to your accent and all of that, and making all of those unconscious biased decisions that they would make. But the moment you open your mouth, the moment you share a little bit about yourself, all of that falls away.
Well, I think we're in a hyper politicized environment right now. And so a lot of people don't want to be seen as saying something wrong, because some things change a bit by the minute. And I have to call out the LGBTQ plus community a bit with this. Sometimes I think that there are some people, not necessarily all, but some that are a little bit hyper aggressive with respect to saying this is the right way to say things. And yes, there is an ideal way to say things too, but you have to sometimes onboard people so that they have a sense of knowing of how to approach things. So the way to mitigate this, I think, is to do what we're doing now, is to have a space in place to disarm, and to say that, okay, here's a safe space to just talk and to hash it out. And I mentioned attacking my ignorance, and I think we all do that, and I certainly will continue to do that. Give people the opportunity to do the same. Give them the opportunity to get onboarded so that they can understand things.
Honestly, our emotions are huge drivers of our judgment, right? But to be able to stop and have these dialogues where if somebody says something, to stop and say, my perception of what you said or what you just did was this, and this is how it made me feel. And for you to have the chance to say, I didn't intend it to be like that. What I meant was something else, or I'm sorry that it was like this, so to open up and it's really exposing our emotions, right? Which is really, really hard for all of us.
And what's often lacking in our world today is that everybody is so caught up in their issues and their ideas that we're not willing to sit down, take time, make a connection with the other before making them understand my point of view. And so until that happens, we're gonna have shouting matches that do nothing. They don't change us, they don't move us forward. But when we make connections and we create the container for a safe container for these brave conversations to take place, real change happens.
If you want to deal with the world we live in today, it's very complex. It's going to be a lot of novel problems. You have to be a leader that's very comfortable in inviting solutions, ideas, and conflict from bottom up, because you may have people suggesting things that you totally don't believe in, or it's against your values, but they may be right. But how do you create the space for them? That's why it's diversity of thinking is also very important. And it's different from just diversity, because here's the problem with, not that geographic, gender, or generational diversity isn't important, but imagine if everybody, despite the difference in nationality, different gender and age, we're all trained to think the same way. Clearly, I don't want people who think like me, because there's just no added value in that. The added value is people who understand how I think, but are thinking differently.
We can't be everything to everyone, as much as that would be great, right? As much as that would be right in some ways. We all have the limitation of the 24 hours in our day. We have the limitation of our education. You pursue a college in one way, an education in one area, you may be completely ignorant, and I mean ignorant not as in stupid, but ignorant as in you just don't understand, in thousands of issues that matter, that you're being completely silent about, right? So I don't think we always have to feel guilty that we are silent about something. The guilt should come in when we're silent about everything. When there is no issue, cause that we're fighting for, because we all have to pick an angle. It's almost like we're in a group, we're in a circle, and we are surrounded. Everybody's got to stop the push on the angle, the spot that they sit in, as they look out on the challenges ahead of us. You stop them from coming over there, I'm going to stop them from coming over here. We'll lean against each other to see if we can get through this, right?
Every day in the media, there's new debates, there's new topics, there's new sides to take, and all that kind of does is, on a serious note, create more controversy, more exclusion. And I think there's a real sense of extreme morality when it comes to those kind of debates. So I think it's just accepting that we all have different beliefs, we all have different opinions, we all have different identities, and it's just about accepting that and respecting each other.
We have to look at where we are, whether it's on climate change, whether it's on these kinds of issues of identity in our societies and so forth. And instead of letting the past dictate the future, right? Instead of letting the harms of the past and whatever, constantly the grievances come forward, I think one of the ways to think about it is to say, look at the future.
Yes, we have a left and we have a right. Yes, there are extremes on both sides, and there are things we will never agree on to the day humans leave this earth. But there's got to be something in the center.
Well, the thing that I often say is that you need to be who you be. And you might think that sounds like bad English, but when I travel to the US and engage with African Americans, I always enjoy how they speak. They put a twist on things. So instead of saying be all you can be or be what you can be, they say be who you be, man. So be who you be speaks to the fact that you need to embrace who you are and embrace who you can be. The only way you unleash your greatness is to embrace all that you are. And so, as you've already heard, I share parts of my stories that sometimes are a little bit uncomfortable for me to share. But the more I share them, the more I'm embracing who I am, because even the hard parts of my story have made me who I am. When people are hiding something, they're always fearing that they're going to be caught out. And so they never show up. They always recoil. The more you embrace who you are, you embrace your story, you embrace your insecurities, but also embrace your talents and your skills, the things that make you unique, the more powerful you become. And you don't have to hide. And so I would say, just say to them, be who you be, man.
So an interesting range of thoughts there from our speakers on what it means to have a brave conversation. They talked about accepting and respecting that we all have different beliefs, opinions, and identities to bring to the discussion, and how sometimes we have to agree to disagree, and that's okay. I think it was Lee who talked about the value in surrounding yourself with people who understand you but think differently, and hopefully that's what we'll be doing here.
They also talked about being prepared to speak honestly and openly, and how that will encourage others to do the same. At the same time, everyone talked about creating a safe space for our conversations by giving each other the space to make mistakes and accepting that we don't mean to offend one another, but we might make a mistake in the heat of the debate. I think it was Ronnie who talked about not being too quick to judge, but instead being ready to forgive each other.
Yeah, and then Offense talked about the lack of understanding often being caused by fear when it comes to having brave conversations. We are afraid of our ignorance, and so we are afraid to speak up. But if we can allow each other to have that space to make mistakes, then maybe we can move forward in a positive way. And Alex and Dr. Shiva, in fact, most of our speakers, talked about moving beyond talking about our fault and blame to focus instead on positive action and what we can do to change things for the better.
So now we're going to move to Baraza breakout rooms to pick up the conversation there. Thank you to all of our brave conversation speakers. We hope you enjoyed watching this film and look forward to sharing the next one with you tomorrow.